Welcome to Fame Factor, the podcast where we dissect the artists who didn't just make music, they rewrote the rules entirely. I'm your host, Sonia Lambert, and today we're diving deep into one of the most polarizing, successful, and technically gifted artists of our time, Marshall Bruce Mathers III, better known as Eminem. Now, before you roll your eyes thinking this is just another Eminem is the greatest rapper of all time discussion, stick with me. Because what we're exploring today isn't just about skill or sales numbers. Though trust me, we'll get to those. We're talking about a cultural phenomenon that transcends music itself. We're talking about authenticity in an era of manufactured personas, about technical mastery that borders on the obsessive, and about an artist who somehow managed to unite audiences across racial lines while simultaneously offending everyone. So buckle up, because we're about to deconstruct the Eminem enigma piece by piece. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Hip-hop has always had a complicated relationship with white artists, and for good reason. When Vanilla Ice burst onto the scene in the early 90s, he represented everything wrong with cultural appropriation in music, a manufactured persona built on borrowed credibility and fabricated street cred. The backlash wasn't just criticism. It was complete rejection by both Black audiences, who felt mocked, and white hip-hop enthusiasts who felt embarrassed. Enter Eminem in the late 90s, and something extraordinary happened. According to a 2002 New York Times article, young Black listeners weren't just tolerating this white rapper, they were actively praising him. Stephen Hill, a vice president at Black Entertainment Television, went so far as to say Eminem surpassed even the top rappers of his era. Think about that for a moment. This wasn't polite acceptance or grudging respect. This was genuine admiration from the very community that had rightfully rejected his predecessors. But what made the difference? Authenticity. While Vanilla Ice was crafting a fictional backstory, Eminem was laying his real pain bare for everyone to see. His struggles weren't manufactured for marketing purposes. They were the raw material of his art. When he rapped about poverty, addiction, family dysfunction, and feeling like an outsider, audiences could sense the truth in every syllable. The numbers tell the story too. The Eminem Show sold approximately 7 million copies in 2002 alone. The 8 Mile soundtrack, featuring a white rapper's story set in Detroit, achieved similar massive sales across diverse demographics. These weren't just white suburban kids buying these albums. This was cross-cultural appeal on a scale rarely seen in hip-hop. But here's where it gets really interesting. Eminem became something that seemed impossible in the early 2000s, a symbol of integration. Remember that word? Integration? It's almost quaint now, but back then it still carried weight. The film 8 Mile didn't just showcase Eminem's acting chops. It portrayed interracial friendships and respect, earned through skill rather than given through privilege. His character starts as an outsider, ready to be dismissed, but earns acceptance through pure talent and authenticity. This wasn't accidental. With Dr. Dre as his producer and mentor, one of hip-hop's most respected figures, Eminem wasn't trying to colonize rap culture. He was being invited into it, vouched for by someone whose credibility was unquestionable. Now, here's where things get complex, and where a lot of people get Eminem wrong. It's tempting to say his success was simply because he was white in a Black genre, giving white audiences someone who looked like them. But that's not just oversimplified. It's insulting to both Eminem and his diverse fan base. Let's look at the landscape of white rappers. Macklemore, Riff Raff, Paul Wall, Asher Roth, Yellow Wolf, Mac Miller, LP, all talented in their own ways, all sharing Eminem's racial background, but none achieving anywhere near his level of success or cultural impact. If race were the primary factor, wouldn't any of these artists have achieved similar dominance? The real answer lies in something much more profound: connection. Eminem doesn't just rap about struggle. He embodies it in a way that resonates with a specific demographic of listeners who feel forgotten by mainstream culture. We're talking about struggling white listeners, yes, but also suburban youth, who are often just one generation removed from economic hardship, who can envision themselves facing similar battles. From a purely numerical standpoint, there are more white individuals navigating impoverished or lower middle class environments than people often acknowledge. These are the listeners who hear Eminem's music and recognize their own helplessness, rage, and alienation reflected back at them. But it's not just the content, it's how he delivers it. Eminem's lyrical style, with its intricate rhyme patterns and explosive energy, mirrors the social stratification and conflict his audience experiences daily. His craftsmanship doesn't just entertain, it validates. When he weaves complex internal rhymes while describing feelings of powerlessness, he's not just showing off technically, he's giving linguistic complexity to experiences that society often dismisses as simple or unworthy of artistic attention. But here's the million-dollar question. Why Eminem and not the others? Even artists who articulate similar struggles, like Asher Roth with his candid acknowledgement of suburban roots, haven't sustained anything close to Eminem's incredible success. There's something ineffable about Eminem's appeal, something that goes beyond the obvious explanations. The answer might lie in perceived authenticity versus actual experience. Eminem's specific experiences may not precisely mirror those of every fan, but the emotional connection feels genuine and immediate. His audience doesn't just support him, they defend him with the fervor usually reserved for family members. Here's where we need to shift our perspective entirely, because analyzing Eminem purely as a rapper, even a supremely skilled one, misses something crucial about his cultural significance. Eminem operates as a poet with a capital P, in the tradition of the great controversial literary figures who shaped public discourse. Think about the legendary poets who transcended their medium. Rimbaud, Keats, Plath, Byron. These weren't just wordsmiths crafting beautiful verses in isolation. They were public figures whose personal controversies, public personas, and artistic output combined to create something larger than the sum of their parts. They became mythic. This is exactly what Eminem has achieved. Marshall Mathers isn't just another rapper assembling tight rhymes. He possesses that same allure and excess that transforms artists into cultural phenomena. He strategically shapes his image, melding it with his music to create an experience that can't be contained within the boundaries of hip-hop. His controversies aren't accidents or career missteps. They're integral to his artistry. When politicians like Senator Joseph Lieberman and Lynn Cheney condemned his music as offensive before his concerts, they weren't damaging his career. They were enhancing his mythology. Like Elvis Presley facing backlash for innovating within black music in the 1950s, Eminem's controversies confirmed his authenticity and rebel status. This is where the political correctness angle becomes crucial. Eminem emerged during an era when many young people felt constrained by what they perceived as excessive advocacy for tolerance imposed by previous generations. His willingness to mock critics and challenge both liberal and conservative perspectives made him a symbol of liberation from those constraints. But here's what's sophisticated about Eminem's approach. He doesn't just rebel for rebellion's sake. Like Howard Stern, he provides refuge for individuals weary of societal pressure on their speech and thoughts. His skilled narrative targets both liberals and conservatives, establishing him as a true rebel in modern American culture, rather than a partisan figure. The comparison to Elvis isn't just about facing backlash. It's about the pattern of white artists innovating within black musical traditions and facing criticism from multiple directions. But where Elvis often seemed to stumble into controversy, Eminem embraces it as an essential element of his artistic identity. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of why Eminem's technical skills set him apart from virtually every other artist in hip-hop. Because while persona and authenticity might explain his broad appeal, his longevity and respect within the hip-hop community comes down to pure technical mastery. The challenge in analyzing Eminem's lyricism is that his actual lyrics are so integral to understanding his technique. It's like trying to explain a machine's efficiency without showing the schematics. But this limitation forces us to examine his artistry from a different angle. as formal innovation, rather than just clever wordplay. Take his contribution to 50 Cent's 2012 single My Life. The song's structure strategically places Eminem's 1-minute verse between two 30-second verses by 50 Cent, inherently creating a comparison between the artists. 50 Cent delivers technically sound, but fairly conventional verses that follow familiar rap structures and tropes. His rhymes are precise, but limited to end sounds, and his meter follows predictable patterns. Then Eminem enters, and everything changes. He begins by establishing a formal baseline that matches 50 Cent's complexity, essentially taking the stylistic baton. But within those first few lines, he's already escalating the technical difficulty. Where 50 Cent relies on monosyllabic rhymes or replicated phrases, Eminem incorporates near rhymes with initial sounds, creating layers of sonic complexity that most listeners feel more than consciously recognize. This isn't showing off, it's craftsmanship elevated to art. Eminem recognizes that formal innovation and thematic content can't be separated. His sophisticated technique serves his complex narratives, debates, rants, and humor. The interdependence between form and content is crucial to understanding his artistry fully. But here's what makes Eminem truly exceptional. He doesn't just master existing techniques, he expands them. Where traditional rap might use cliches as shorthand, Eminem reworks and expands these familiar elements, rendering them unexpected. He takes the building blocks that other artists use straightforwardly and transforms them into something entirely new. This is why, despite the existence of other supreme lyricists like Ice Cube, Andre 3000, Big L, Kendrick Lamar, Rakim, Lauryn Hill, Lil Wayne, Big Daddy Kane, Ludacris, Talib Kweli, Scarface, Jay-Z, Tupac, Nas, and Biggie, a substantial segment of listeners still considers Eminem unequivocally the best. It's not just about technical skill, it's about technical innovation combined with emotional authenticity and cultural significance. Let's zoom out and examine what Eminem represents in the broader context of American culture. Because his significance extends far beyond hip-hop into questions of race, class, authenticity, and artistic freedom that continue to shape our cultural conversations today. Eminem recalls an era of early 1960s pop music, before the racial divisions in music became so pronounced. His content challenges political correctness boundaries in ways that both attract and repel audiences, but these controversies affirm his authenticity in expressing the raw, unfiltered thoughts that hip-hop has always been meant to convey. When he openly mocked critics during his 2002 tour to his audience's delight, he was signaling something larger than just artist versus critic dynamics. He was representing a generational shift away from the stringent norms of political correctness that many young people viewed as controlling rather than liberating. This is where Eminem becomes truly dangerous to established power structures. His willingness to critique both liberal and conservative perspectives, to address heated issues that others avoid, gives hope to those who see rap music as a potent vessel for unsettling power structures and challenging societal norms. But here's what's crucial. Eminem's rebelliousness isn't destructive nihilism. His work with Dr. Dre demonstrates commitment to hip-hop's multicultural and inclusive potential. His portrayal of interracial friendships in 8 Mile shows understanding that true integration requires mutual respect and shared artistic vision. The racial dynamics of his success are complex, precisely because they can't be reduced to simple explanations. Yes, his whiteness allowed him to reach audiences that might not have otherwise engaged with hip-hop. But his authenticity and skill earned him acceptance from hip-hop's core community in ways that purely commercial crossover artists never achieved. Since rap music had already garnered significant support from white audiences who contributed to millions of album sales, it makes sense that Black audiences would reciprocate by embracing genuinely skilled white artists like Eminem. This wasn't tokenism or charity. It was recognition of legitimate talent and authentic expression. What Eminem ultimately represents is the possibility that art can transcend the racial and cultural boundaries that politics often reinforces. Like Sly and the Family Stone before him, his body of work seeks to unite through shared musical expression, rather than divide through cultural gatekeeping. Remember, the greatest artists don't just reflect their times, they help shape them. Eminem didn't just succeed within existing hip-hop conventions. He expanded what those conventions could include, while maintaining respect for the culture's core values. But are you aware of how Eminem's carefully crafted legacy paved the way for other artists like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, and Big Sean? And how did his creations demonstrate that rap music can continue to provoke, excite, and unite audiences across traditional demographic boundaries? Download the Skoob app now from App Store and Play Store to get an exclusive access to the full story of Eminem for free.